see it go live. There we are.
Yeah.
All right, boys and girls, this is Rocco Landers coming to you from Dustin's house.
Yeah, right.
You look a little different.
It's you know.
All right, boys and girls, this is Rocco.
Yes.
And there's that famous echo.
Of course. Because I'm a total moron and can't figure out technology, apparently.
It's funny, you get paid to be an IT guy.
I'm Dustin Coiner. I'm the owner of TrackDaz, and I'm sitting here talking to my friend Richard Stanboli from Monster Energy Attack Performance Yamaha, the guy that's in charge of the team that's winning everything. So let's talk about PitRace, Richard.
First of all, you're making some assumptions. You said we were friends.
Oh,
You got to chill out on the assumptions.
Oh, geez. Such a bully.
Yeah, pretty much.
Stan Bully.
Anyone who knows me knows I have no friends.
And you never smile and you're scary.
Yeah, basically. Oh, that's true.
all of that's true. Is that what you said?
Yes.
So, you know what? It was a solid weekend for you guys, I'd say. I mean, Yamaha swept the podium both days, and, you know, Cam pretty much dominated again, you know. You guys made a few improvements. You know, tell me about it a little bit.
I mean, want to start at the beginning? That track was actually quite different this year than last year, the year before, because we won with Josh there, Josh Heron, the year before, but it was kind of a semi-wet condition, but it had a lot of grip.
Yeah.
And it was really hard on tires. And then we went back last year, and it pretty much destroyed the softer tire last year. And there was quite a bit of chatter. And this year was basically a chatter box with no grip. So every year that track seems to change a little bit. So it's kind of interesting. It put a little challenge at us. I think the competition was a lot closer. Me being, you know, the owner operator of both riders, it's kind of a torn between helping Cameron and ensuring he wins, and also helping Jake ensuring he wins, or at least is competitive. And so, you know, we're an open book in our tent. So, both sides of the tent, you know, kept progressing all the way through the weekend, and we finally got, I think, a pretty decent setup by the end.
Well, I mean, it looked like Jake made some improvements. You know, Skoltz is up there too, but then, you know, a couple of surprises. I mean, you seeing Josh Heron getting up the pace on that BMW thing he's been riding. You know, he's been kind of struggling most of the season. All of a sudden, he's like scrapping with Tony and having a pretty good little thing with Kyle. So,
well, I know Josh pretty well. Obviously, I worked with him for a few years.
Yeah.
And you know, with that guy, if you find him a setup he's comfortable with, he rocks. It almost doesn't matter what he rides.
Yeah.
Because it's just the way he is. I mean, he's a little bit of a bonehead, you know, off the bike, but he's pretty aggressive on the bike. Actually, I get along with him great. But sometimes he could be a bonehead on the bike too. I guess he was showing some of his emotion on the racetrack.
Yeah, he's kind of an emotional rider a little bit, you know, but he also, I mean, it was good to see him get back to what, you know, the dude we all know and love, you know, like that maniac dude that's out there throwing down. I was super stoked to see that. Okay,
now you're using a word like love. First it's friends, now it's love.
Okay.
Like, maybe.
Come on, man. Yeah, so I mean, the guy, you know, I mean, as a fan favorite person, like, it's kind of cool to see him get back up the pace, you know. So
yeah, I think Cameron being so freaking fast is making the front part kind of boring, and you know, so we're trying to fix that by getting Jake, you know, up there with him. We have a little bit of fight, but you know, Josh definitely put on a great show, and Schultz put on a great show, and he was super fast this weekend, and that team, you know, Team Westby guys really started to show their potential this last weekend. I mean, 1, 2, 3 Yamaha again. I mean, a couple seconds for those guys. I mean, it was really good.
So let's talk about it a little bit. You know, QP1. Let's start from there because that's when you guys get started. you know,
Yeah.
we talked about this before. There's only so much they show us, right? So, you know, it looks like on TV the guys only do a couple laps, but the reality is they're out there for half an hour or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, we usually will start with something that where we left off. With that particular race, we didn't start with where we left off Atlanta. Cameron wanted to go back to his base setting. I
Oh,
think, yeah, so we went back to base setting, but I think he's progressed from his base setting because now his base settings shifted slightly. So the last two events, his base setting has been a little bit different. So we're a little torn as to right now to show up to Ridge with, again, the base setting just to go back to where he left off at Atlanta. You follow what I'm saying? Like the bike develops through the season, and you
yeah.
never quite end up where we tested it, you know, Buttonwillow back in November, you know. So yeah, so we'll you know, we just keep working on that setting. And so we started with a base setting, and then we found that, hey, we need to go a little firmer here, try to find some traction there. So we ended up quite a bit closer to Atlanta. It was pretty unique. And we
So,
actually had some new forks too this time.
oh, yeah, more new forks.
Well, the forks were the same as we used in Atlanta because we got them in Atlanta.
Right.
But because we had new forks, the settings were a little bit different, a little bit new to
Okay.
us.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually Jake kind of struggled with him a little bit. He was really fast at Atlanta with it.
Yeah.
But this particular race, it's such a teeter-totter track, you know, meaning that you're on the front, on the rear, on the front, on the climbing hills, going over hills,
It looks like a
turning a
fun
lot.
track to ride, you know?
Yeah, it's quite technical.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of hills. You have to be kind of smooth, which
That weird
favors
chicane,
Cameron.
the curving on the ground chicane thing too, the temporary markers or whatever. That looked kind of weird to me, but other than that, track looked fun.
Yeah, you know, the chicane, yeah, if you hit it wrong like Josh did, I mean, you're going to go off the track, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's an interesting place to put it, but I guess, you know, kind of like Fontana. If you've ridden in Fontana,
Yeah.
but they put that chicane there because obviously they don't
Yeah.
want people piling into the wall, you know, the banking. So it's a similar kind of thing over there. They had to really slow people down before they got in that right-hander.
Okay. So okay, QP1, you know, it looks like, you know, Jake led the session early on, and then you know, Cam does what Cam does, but Jake was right there with about 0.2. And one of the things I noticed is that Jake's bike just moves around so much. Like you were saying that he was like having a harder time coming up with or getting comfortable on the new forks or whatever, but his bike just like it's just Jake, right? And
Yeah,
but I
that's
noticed he was pinging off the rev limiter a ton.
yeah. You know, I have to go back and look at the Glenn's notes. I don't know what gearing they had. We
Yeah.
went with the gearing that Cam rode last year, and he seemed to be comfortable with it. I think those guys might have been a bit shorter, and then they went over to I don't know. I'll have to check the notes. I don't have all the exact info, but they
Okay.
might have eventually came to the gearing that Cam had. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that yeah, Jake's a very animated rider. He's tall, he's strong, I mean, he's lean. He got never wears out, so he's like 100% the whole race.
Yeah.
And I think he's more 100% than the motorcycle is.
Well, yeah, like I mean, you know, it looked like he was going good. I mean, he got within 0.2 of Cam with 10 minutes to go. Like that's pretty strong. I mean, I think Cameron ended up being like 0.7 above everybody at the end of that one, but you know, somehow he just manages to throw something down at the last second to somehow always stay on top. Like you know, don't know how he does that, but you say it every week, right? It's just Cam.
Yeah, you know, he uses the front really well, and he
Yeah.
knows how to use that front tire, and that's really I think where he finds the advantage. So he rolls through the session, and he'll go faster and faster because he starts learning how much more he can push the front, fine tuning the lines, working on. You know, there was a number of times where he would say, oh, I'm having an issue here, but I think I'll just back up my brake marker a little bit and that'll fix the exit. Instead of saying, oh, the bike doesn't turn, fix it.
Oh wow. Okay.
You know what I mean? So he analyzes, it's not just the motorcycle, like you give him a good baseline and he'll keep working on his trying to optimize how the motorcycle will get around for him. And then when he gets stuck, we can work on some other things. So he puts a lot of it on himself, which is really cool.
So before I move into the QP2, let's ask another question here. Let's see.
Yep.
Matt Testa, Matty, he's a customer of the shop as well.
Okay, cool.
And he wants to know is, should MotoAmerica go with a control ECU situation like British Superbike?
No. British Superbike is stupid.
I kind of explained to him what I thought you would say, but I figured you had a better explanation as to why. I think we've kind of touched on it in previous versions of this.
I can tell you this much. If they went that way, we'd smash everyone worse.
Okay.
I almost guarantee it.
And
I can tell you why.
Yeah, tell us why, Richard.
Because these ECUs and systems that come from World Superbike, they're developed by the top teams, and then they give you a satellite license, meaning that they give you everything on the back end that's already done, and it's like a modified kit box. So it's like an extra powerful kit box. It gives you all the logging inside the box, gives you all those things to where a rider can develop, the team can develop. So everyone on the team, I mean, we're talking about, we're in 2020 here, so we're going to go back to carburetors again. So the team gets to develop. In BSB, what happens is they take away a lot of the rider aids, so they say, but the guys still have certain adjustments like throttle control. It's not one-to-one throttle, and they have timing adjustments. When those things, this is basically what our bike does in a closed loop. Meaning that if the bike reaches a certain parameter, automatically, like a stock bike, the traction control will come on and the wheelie control will come on. With those things over there, if you have a smart engineer, he can figure out how much power to put around the racetrack, open loop. And so what's going to happen is the guys who are smart are going to be that much further ahead versus the guys who are trying to catch up. The guys who have never taken a math class are going to have a super hard time.
Guys have never taken a math class.
Seriously, I mean, you're talking about torque. You're talking about, I mean, some people don't even understand the difference between horsepower and torque. Right. And so if you don't know those things, it's going to be awfully hard for you to find out. I mean, it's all going to be like trial and error, right? Instead of coming to a racetrack with, okay, this is a system that works. We're going to go ahead and try to develop how much power I can put to the motorcycle at any particular time. Don't be fooled. Those guys in BSB spend a lot of time on the back end making those motorcycles work.
So, all right. I hope
that's my feelings. Someone else can knock that back.
Like Maddie was, I mean, that's something I've heard a lot from people and people saying the same things, and I think it's just a reaction to, thinking that maybe that would make the racing a little bit closer. And
it won't.
I remember you and I have had several discussions about that, going back to, previous to, back in your old carburetor days.
Well, let me tell you this much. When we raced Superstock with Josh Herron,
yes,
okay, we won 7 races in a row and set 7 track record poles, whatever you want to call it, to win the championship or race early. And why was that? Because we worked on all the torque mapping and all that stuff on the back end. It was basically the same. It was a flash box,
right?
So it's basically the same, if not less capability than the BSB bikes have. And the guys behind us, they just couldn't touch it. So there was a few guys that'd be close every now and then. And then here's the other thing too, is who's going to manage that control box? That takes a lot of management capability on the part of the sanctioning body. So they may be able to pull it off. I'm not sure. It won't change the result. I'll tell you, Cameron last year, he rode around on a bike that had a lot of power and very little control, and he still won the championship. So I don't think it's really going to change or slow down a fast rider. Fast rider is always going to be a fast rider. You can't take that away from him unless you make him eat burgers all for a month straight before he shows up at the racetrack.
the Formula 240, right?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I'm going for Formula 60.
Oh, is that right?
Remember I said I was going to race Formula 40?
Yeah, I mean,
That came and went.
he called you out. I guess you guys are gonna have to grid up at some point and throw down.
Maybe this winter.
Yeah.
It'd be fun. When's the last time it was it one of your track days?
Oh, it's been a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so QP2, Cam basically just goes right to P1 again. He comes in. It looked like he was having a problem. Like it looked like he was just kind of cruising in. He might have had a problem. I don't know.
Oh, that's Cameron being Cameron. He hit the wrong button. He killed the bike instead of the hit limiter. The guy's apparently very good at video games and racing a motorcycle, but he can't figure out the damn handlebar switches.
Yeah, so after that, he just kind of starts banging out fast laps, and he gets back out there. Jake, it took Jake a minute to get up to speed. It looked like he blew the chicane. I don't know what was happening there, but I know you probably don't have Glenn's notes.
They did a lot of stuff on Jake's bike, so they were trying a lot of stuff. Okay. They really wanted to, because they were really competitive in Atlanta, so they tried a lot of things. So it was hard for me to keep up with everything they did, including changing the forks for the second race.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So
I know after whatever it was that he had that problem, came in, and then I think he was in P6 or something at the moment, and then all of a sudden he jumped right out to P2 the next time out. So he's getting there, man. He's hustling. So
yeah, they were changing offsets. I mean, they changed a bunch of stuff on that motorcycle, trying to get Jake completely comfortable at racetrack. Like I said, that track changed quite a bit since the last time we were there. So it was almost like, other than the fact the corners went the same direction, the track seemed fairly different.
Yeah. Okay, so let's ask another question before we go to QP3 or whatever, free practice, right?
FP3.
Yeah. So another customer of the shop, Duffy Gapper. Yep. Mm-hmm. He's like a kind of a badass dude.
Cool.
He's like a former Navy SEAL or something. The dude's
awesome.
Kind of a beast.
I don't like water.
He says to please ask you in order of importance.
Yeah.
What you did or what you would do to the R1 to improve its performance. And I think maybe it's because he has one. So
I'd probably, let's see, first thing I would probably, if it was, depends on the budget, right?
Yeah.
So in order of importance, I would probably, are we talking about start with a stock motorcycle or one that already has the normal stuff?
Stock motorcycle, because I know Duffy's got an R1 and I know he's had a hard time with some of the setup stuff or whatever. So I'm just putting words in his mouth a little bit there, but I'm suspecting that's the case because he rides with us a lot. So
yeah, so if you're a track day guy, I mean, obviously the first thing you want to do is get proper controls on the thing and an exhaust system. And the exhaust system mainly because of the weight. It isn't like the bikes aren't fast, but the exhaust with the catalytic converter, you can't really put a belly pan on it because it gets too hot. So you want to put an exhaust system on it, and then of course you want to put good suspension on it.
Yeah.
It's not that the OE stuff is no good, but if you want to race or put a track day together where you're doing more than one lap, then this stuff's going to get it's going to fade after a few laps and it won't function all that good. So a good Öhlins shock, good Öhlins cartridges, some good foot controls like ours that have really grippy pegs. You don't have to work real hard to keep your feet on the pegs. You can hang off easy. And so all those things, So then after that, you want to get into the electronics. And once you get going a little bit, you'll realize that maybe the OE stuff isn't quite good enough. So either with the new bikes, nobody has a flash for them. So we sell a kit ECU. We're currently sold out, but I think we got our last batch.
I know there's one left in the shop and it's mine.
It's yours for sure. I've been holding on to it, but we have another batch that just came in, so we may have to let yours go. So anyway, so the kit ECUs, they're already, like I said, pre-programmed. There's not the same level as the MLE, but it's something that's getting a little closer to it, and it has more racy controls like anti-wheelie and anti-slip and slide and traction control and all those kinds of things.
And you could do all the torque flattening stuff that we were talking about before?
Well, that's kind of built into the kit ECU. It's not quite as flexible as the MLE as far as that respect goes. The MLE is what they call a torque-based ECU. Same
Right.
with all the OE stuff. So it looks at the torque of the rear wheel and it tries to control the torque at the rear wheel instead of looking at throttle opening.
Okay.
So it gets complicated. Basically, the ECU's got a blueprint of the engine built into it as far as how it delivers power. And then it tries to make the power delivery very smooth because it's all drive-by-wire, right? That way you don't get a sudden surge of power in one spot. So that's what makes the bike super drivable. And that's what the next thing I would do is make the thing smooth and easy to ride. Like I always say, the bike needs to be a 600 in the corners and a 2000 on the straightaway.
A 2000.
Yeah, more than 1,000. 2,000 with a rocket engine.
Okay, so let's talk about practice 3, I guess. Cam just goes out and does Cameron stuff, right? And Jake, man, he was again P1 again for a minute, and Maddie was right there as well, right? And then somehow Cam came in or something. A couple guys went a little bit quicker, and right towards the end, Cameron just goes out there, does a 40.3, which is insane.
Yeah, Cameron wanted to start with older tires in those sessions.
Oh, okay.
So like, for instance, on QP2, we went out on the QP1 tire that already had almost race distance on it. So we were trying to figure out the grip of that track because the grip is so low. And we did that time that he went out and did an FP3 on the hardest tire.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it took a few laps. Like even with a hard tire on that track, it took maybe 3 laps before the tire would really start showing some grip.
Really?
So that's why you could see kind of look at his lap times, like boom, boom, boom. I remember talking to John Cornwall, and he comes in and he goes, "Yeah, hey, I see you guys did this, this, and this." I go, "Yeah, that's on the hard tire." He goes, "Oh, I won't go around telling anybody else that." Didn't want to demoralize anyone,
Yeah,
But the track was weird. Go ahead.
They were talking about tires too on, Greg and Jay or whatever, talking about different tires, and I didn't know what your plan was for the practice sessions, whether you guys were going out on scrubs or what. But
yeah, we started with a used tire, and we went maybe, I don't know, a quarter of the way into the session after we'd already put a bunch of laps on the previous session, and then we threw a new one on, a new hard one for FP3. And he went out and did his fast lap and tried to see how much longer that would hang. And then, so we were testing tires. We were trying to see the longevity of a tire and what the grip would be like and how the data read out. So it was really, like I said, again, it was unique, at least for our bikes, that the soft tire didn't prove to be that much faster than the hard tire. And the Q didn't prove to be that much faster than the soft tire. So it was fairly abnormal situation for us.
All right, so let's see, because we had a couple of problems here and there, right? So Mark Johnson asked me to ask you regarding troubleshooting issues with the bikes. Are there like typical questions that you guys go through, like a checklist, or is troubleshooting more of a technical instinct based on previous experiences?
What kind of trouble? We're talking about the riders' complaints on the racetrack?
Yeah.
So I mean, Cameron comes in, like most riders, comes in, give him a minute, take his helmet off. He always likes to take his helmet off and kind of get a breather, not in a huge hurry. So he's fairly relaxed. He'll come in, sit down. If there's 20 minutes on the board, he'll take like 5 or 10 minutes. And then we'll go through the track map, and anywhere he's struggling or he thinks we can improve, we'll just point it out and mark it on a track map, mark it QP1, 2, FP3, whatever, and put in our information as we get done, put in our notes. And so we'll go back, and if we can fix it that session, if it isn't something that's going to take like, a fork change or, a shock valving change, or if we have something ready to go, like a fork spring, we'll just throw it in right there. And if it's an electronics thing, that's really fast. So I need a little more anti-wheelie here, or a little less, or, a little more traction control. So we'll go through. Sometimes, like I said, Cameron was used to riding with very limited rider aids last year. So kind of have to extract some of that from him and look at the information and say, okay, yes, you need more here and less there.
It's strange to hear that, you know, because I mean, I know you've been working with that Morelli stuff for a minute, and you know, to say that the guy who's got the big number 1 on his bike didn't use very many rider aids, it's like, what? That's
No,
like,
I think he did, but the bike, like I said, was tuned so powerful that the rider aids weren't that great of a difference, let's say.
okay.
And I think that this year, I think one of the bigger things we did was we made the bike a little bit easier for him to ride. So now his concentration level is lower for race distance. You follow what I'm saying? Like, it's easier to go race distance with something you can smash the throttle open on and not have to worry about getting spit off the thing or spinning the tire out of control. So I think that we're getting a little closer to making the bike super easy to ride. And that's the same thing with Jake. You know, I think he's getting to the point where he understands that having the feeling of fast, lots of power isn't always the best way around. When you like, you know, Road America 1, I think he just destroyed the rear tire. And because he wanted the bike super fast, you think it's Road America, but
Right.
ultimately we ended up dumbing the thing down for Road America 2. And he was a lot faster, and then dumbing it down some more for Atlanta. So it keeps going that direction, you know, just try to make the bike as rideable as possible.
So when you figure out something, you have that light bulb thing that you've worked on your bikes and figured them out. Like, is there a procedure for you to share that with, say, the factory Yamaha Superbike team and World Superbike, or do you?
Yeah, I mean, those guys are pretty switched on. You know, there's probably not much that we do would apply to them because
Right.
they're on a different tire already anyway.
Yeah.
And they have a pretty good, I mean, Christoph and the other guy, the Italian guy, I don't remember what his name was. Those guys are really switched on. They're really smart guys.
Yeah.
And so if anything, that, you know, if we get stuck on something, we'll ask them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but upstream,
they're not banging on your door asking for info.
well, I think if we gave it to them, they'd be happy to have it. But
Yeah.
you know, they have their program, and it's a pretty, like I said, a switched on program. So they go down their path. I don't think they need someone from the outside who's never seen their motorcycles or worked with their riders going, hey man, you should do it this way. You know, I mean, it's like some guy coming over to your team and saying, hey, we did this over here, you guys should try that. You're like, hey, shut up, go away.
You run your track day this way.
Yeah, we do this at the track day. You guys should try that.
Right. So Superpole, let's talk about it. You know, Cam, same thing, goes right to P1. I mean, man, the guy just, I mean, look, am I crazy? Was he just like banging out minute 40s like it was his job?
Yeah, the 40s are pretty easy. The 39s were a little tougher.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, the track didn't seem to offer as much grip. I think, I don't think we beat the track record this time. I have to go back and look. I think Garrett might still have it. I think we did a 39.9 or real close. I think Garrett did a 39.8 last year. I don't know. I have to go back and look. It's not really super important to me, but you know, we've been busting the track record everywhere.
It got really exciting there the last maybe couple laps because, you know, Fonger stepped up and had P1 for a second, and you know, Jake goes and kind of knocks Fonger off, and then, you know, then he ended up getting knocked off by Matt and Cameron, and all like really quickly. I mean, I don't know if, I think that was when Matt was kind of following Cameron there that towards the end maybe, but I mean, it looked like the checker flag came out and Cam threw that one last flyer in and did like an 02, you know, like a 40.02 or something. So,
Yeah. Well, you know, we timed it wrong.
Oh,
the session. So when Cameron came in, everyone had already had their tires on. They were all waiting.
okay.
Looked down pit lane, and every mechanic was sitting there with their hands on the tire warmers, waiting for us to roll out. So it's kind of funny. So I don't know who got the caboose on that train, but Cameron was definitely the locomotive.
Yeah.
So he went out, just put his head down. But you know, Matt, he was able to hang right in there, so it was pretty cool. I thought Matt was going to get pole for a minute.
Yeah.
Cameron was fastest in the last split. Like I think Matt was first in the first two splits. It was really, I mean, he really used him as a nice rabbit, and he chased him down. To Cameron, I think, shut him down in the last split, and that was that.
You know, and his reaction, Cameron's reaction to having the camera stuck in his face after Superpole, he's just laughing, and you see he's having a good time because, you know, every time he takes his helmet off, he's got that big grin on his face, right? And this one, he says something about him trying a couple of different setups that you guys hadn't previously tried while he was laughing. Like,
Yeah.
Like I don't know what you guys did for that, but
Yeah, for which session? Qualifying?
Superpole.
Superpole?
Yeah.
We tried a lot of stuff to get. We tried a lot of stuff. Yeah, we tried a lot of stuff to get grip. I think we changed the offset in that session, and it actually made the bike chatter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think it could have been a little faster. I have to go back and look at my notes because we tried so much stuff that weekend. Like we're changing offset, we're changing springs, we're changing ride height. We made the bike taller at one point. You know, so we were doing stuff every single session. Up to race 2, we had to change for race 2.
Well, I mean, he was saying it with a big grin on his face after smoking everybody. So in Superpole. So I mean,
yeah, we didn't. You know, I gotta give those other guys credit that we didn't really smoke them as much as we normally do. You know, it was really close. Matthew was right there. Matt was right there, and Jake was out by himself. I think he had a couple guys in front of him that kind of held him up a little bit, and he still got P3. It was all really close.
So before we start talking about the races, I got a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Stephen Ludwig,
I don't know that guy.
Your favorite website guy.
Oh, Hairwig.
The Hairwig, yes. He wants to know if your sponsors have asked you guys to slow down a little bit to get back on TV.
You know, I don't know if this is confidential or not, but I talked to Chuck Axland via text today.
Yeah.
And yeah, he basically said that, you know, maybe go a little too fast. And not in so many words, that maybe we should not back off, but it'd be nice if the other guys caught up.
Wow, man. And then, you know, another one from Mark Johnson. He says, regarding the Westby team, what's the scoop there? It seems like since Westby team became an attack partner, Skoltz has been better off the starts and also in the races overall.
Yeah, you know, I asked Chuck Chiquetto that question today, and I said, what is, you know, I asked him, what is the most important thing that you've done to your motorcycle to improve it? And he said, A was the software update, which we ran last year.
Right.
I was trying to get Josh Heron to ride actually, but he didn't really like the feel of it. And same with Cameron. He said that was a important part of it. It just made the bike easier to ride, like I keep talking about. And then the next thing was the triple clamps that they were using some other third-rate clamp last year, you know, and they got it for free. And you know, you get what you pay for, I guess.
I mean, look, you know, I have a saying, and you know, I'm gonna curse a little bit because I say it all the time. But you know, free shit is still shit.
Pretty much.
So there you go.
You know, so I think between all that, and we gave them a little bit of help initially with some of the setup of the software, but they have a pretty good team over there. So they're able to develop their own path, and the paths are fairly aligned. You know, there's only so many ways you can go, and they're figuring it out. I mean, John Cornwell's their suspension guy. He's a really good guy. You know, their data guy's a really good guy. So they have a pretty good team over there, and giving them the right bits, so they're able to pull it off. So yeah, for sure. I mean, Matthew's riding really good too. They did struggle a bit at one of the rounds. I think MotoAmerica too, but you know, they pulled up.
They were having some. I think they were having some engine development issues early on.
Yeah, you know, they tried some stuff and it didn't work out. So they got some advice from the BSB guys or something. I don't know, and it didn't work out for them. But you know, they're good now.
You know, I have it in my notes too, but you know, I see there's a couple of privateer guys out there in the Superbike grid running R1s, and I wanted to know if the attack program is helping those guys at all either. You know, like Max Flinder's guy, and I can't remember what the other guy's name was, number 31, I think.
You know, if those guys that want to come over, we're more than willing to share information with them. Like Max came over for a minute and said, "Hey, I'm really struggling." He had some insert, like steering head inserts and some clamps he got secondhand from actually the Westby team.
Okay.
And I said, "Hey, you need to put this, and this in your package." So, like I said, if those guys came by, I would gladly share information for them. I told them exactly what Jake had in his bike for front setup and exactly what Cameron had in his bike for front setup. So we're there to help the other Yamaha guys as well.
Yeah, I mean, those guys, it's kind of cool to see these privateer dudes, you know. They're not operating out of huge semi trucks and that kind of thing. So it's kind of cool to.
No, Max got a little box van. It kind of reminds me of the Paul Harrell days back in the 90s when we would drive the little ugly ass white box van everywhere.
Yeah.
Didn't have any place to rest, you know. We'd rest between the bikes. It was pretty cool though. We were top privateers then. It was fun.
Right. It's awesome. Okay, so let's talk about the race, yeah?
Sure.
One, Cam gets the whole shot and does a minute 42 from a dead stop.
That was race 2, I think. Was that race 1?
That's race 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was 43 something, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's got, it looks like he does what Cam does, and just kind of, I don't know. He was like 1.3 out by lap 3. I think the TV dudes mentioned you guys made a shock change or something. So
yeah, the bike was the bike needed to be a little bit more. It was like I said, the track was different, and so we were fighting turning versus grip. So the bike needed a little more support in the rear. So we made a shock change, made a valving change right before the race, and we just went with it. And it wasn't a dramatic change, but definitely was a stack change in both the rebound and compression side and a spring change. So, if you know what direction you're going to go, it's really easy to do something like that before a race. And, if you ever talk to Wayne Rainey, he'll talk about all the things that he would do when he was on a Grand Prix bike right before an event. And he'd freak all the Japanese out. It's like, you guys are changing all that. Don't worry about it, So with some riders, they'd be like, no, leave it alone. I don't want to change it. But, Cameron and I kind of built up a little bit of rapport as far as the direction we go, and we're willing to make some changes right before an event.
Jimmy says that he's equating you to Mr. Miyagi and the Karate Kid.
Dude, Mr. Miyagi was super small. Who's this now?
That's Jimmy.
Jimmy. Well, tell Jimmy to come over and wax on, wax off over here one day.
Okay, so and then in the race, Jake kind of got shuffled back up to start a little bit, and he went to work on Bobby and had a pretty good scrap there with Bobby for a minute, and then after that he kind of hung in there with Matt till the end.
Yeah, he didn't have, again, they were just still trying to get there. He was on the new forks, and they tried a lot of stuff on the bike, and Jake just couldn't seem to, his riding style didn't quite fit with the setup of the bike for that track.
Okay.
His turn-in was a little tighter than Cameron's, and so he asked for a little bit more out of the front tire, and there was a pretty strong connection between the ground and the bike, and he was feeling it, and just wasn't super comfortable in race 1, I could say.
Yeah.
But by race 2, the team got it figured out, so that was pretty cool.
And then obviously Matt hung in there in P2 basically the length of the race, and Yamaha swept the podium. But man, Bobby Fong had the gnarliest crash, man. That dude is just ouch.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel sorry for him and Chris Ulrich, I want those guys to do good. I just don't want them beating us.
I mean, it looks like he's there, man. He's like just right close to just being there with you guys. And then, he takes 2 steps forward and then ends up on his face. And, it's heartbreaking seeing those guys like that, and I mean, Bobby's a champion though. That dude tried to make it back for race 2, but, I'm sure, no matter how badass your tolerance for pain is, and Bobby's probably got one of those big mega tolerances for pain. you know, he had to pull off. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he bashed his hand pretty hard. I don't know if he broke anything.
yeah,
Probably did, but you could see it in the slow mo. You know, they dug that hand straight. I was thinking the bike was gonna land on him. The perspective they showed
oh, oh,
on the video there, you know, it looked like, oh no, don't hit him. Last time I've seen that, I mean, it ended badly, like for Vincent
yeah,
Haskovic. Remember that?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, so Yamaha sweep day one, and Cameron's quote, I wrote it down. He says, "The R1's the bike to be on."
Duh. Is that the proper answer?
I guess. He's like, yeah, he's, and like I said before, he had this big grin on his face, you know, and he's like, oh, look, see the podium here? The R1's obviously the bike to be on. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think the other guys just haven't caught up. You know, I think Kyle's bike gets better almost every weekend. You
Yeah.
know, his crew chief electronics guy is really good. Like I said, the Suzuki is just a matter of time, I think. You know, Bobby's trying really hard, obviously. He just miscalculates every now and then, and it costs them a little bit, but I think at some point they're going to get it together. I mean, Bobby did win one, the one that Cam crashed out of. So
Yeah.
he's got, at the very least, second place potential, right?
Oh,
So
absolutely.
that's not bad.
Well, the thing is, I mean, it looks like they're close. I mean, all the guys, you know, Jake's getting close, Maddie's getting close, you know, and at that last round, I mean, Aaron was getting up there. So I was like, oh shit, okay, we got a race on our hands if those guys step up a tiny bit. So
you're putting the pressure on me now. I'm gonna have to go back and do some homework.
yeah.
Well, see, this is why I have this. I'm gonna drink this tonight. I'm gonna keep working on my data.
Naturally, you had your Monster Energy shot so you can work all night.
That's right.
All right, so let's ask a couple of viewer questions. You know,
Sure.
Chris Lopez says, "Do you have any comment on the Wyman Heron drama? I'm sure you'll stay reserved on the issue, but
Kidding me? When am I ever reserved?
yeah, you're not a politically correct dude." Yeah, what do you think about that? I mean, I saw some finger gesturing and I saw some social media stuff between those two guys, mostly one side. But
I think if you give them a couple of chairs, they could hit each other with them. You know, a little WWF action. That's old school, isn't it? WWF.
I mean, you know, I think the fans like the rivalry stuff like that. You know, I don't know about the middle fingering during the race, but then again, I'm an asshole and I've done that myself. So, you know.
Yeah, you know, I was always too scared to take my hands off the bars.
Yeah, well, some of us are dumber than others.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
You
so
actually gave someone the middle finger on the racetrack?
I think so. I think there was some gesturing going on.
Shame on you.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
so what do you think of their rivalry? I mean, I think I know.
No, it doesn't bother me. As
Yeah,
long as
Cameron
no one
and
gets
Tony
hurt.
had a rivalry like that kind of a couple years ago, right? I mean, it was getting heated even in the press box. So
Well, Tony and Cameron, I mean, Tony was going after Cameron after Road America when Josh, Tony, and Cameron were going at it, like one of the best races I've ever seen.
yeah,
I mean, that was a great race. And, you know, Tony turned in, Cameron had nowhere to go, and they bumped, and Tony fell down. And yeah, and then Josh took Tony out at VIR, and you know, and then Matt took Tony out at Road America. It's like Tony's been knocked out a lot, so I can
Tony,
imagine he's not very happy.
yeah, and he's a Spaniard, right? So I'm sure he's
Oh yeah, he's on the rev limiter.
yeah.
He's
Yeah.
a super nice guy off the bike, though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
He's super competitive, which you expect these guys to be. So I think, honestly, I think a little bit of passion is good. It's good energy, you know. You just got to focus it.
yeah. All right, so let's see. I don't know what this. I don't even want to try to pronounce this guy's username on YouTube, but he wants to know if oil coolers are worth it. If so, what would be the recommended oil thermostat stabilization temp with an oil cooler, especially on a Daytona?
Oh, 675?
Yep.
Oh yeah, you're going back
Yeah.
in the memory banks. We did
Yeah.
that one year with Riders Discount on the 695R. And
Jeez.
for sure on that bike, the oil cooler was a big deal. They didn't have an oil temp sensor on that bike, if I remember right. So I couldn't really help them with a oil temperature. I just know that the oil cooler was a big deal on that motorcycle. So I would definitely change it out. I think
Okay.
there was a aftermarket company, I can't remember who it was, that made a pretty good oil cooler kit for that thing.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
there you go. And then Ben Gary says, when switching from harder carcasses tires like Dunlop Slick to a softer carcass like Pirelli Slick, what would you recommend or suspect needs to be done to the suspension for the softer Pirelli?
That's a good question because we struggled with that a lot in World Superbike when we did those wild cards. But generally,
You guys are practicing and racing back to back.
I know. But the Dunlop, I think, requires a little. It's really hard to say. It depends on the rider, So it's hard to say if it's going to be a particular way, and it depends on electronics too. The Pirelli in World Superbike anyway requires the temperature stabilization before you can even race on the thing, because the thing changes size and shape with temperature fairly easily because of soft carcass. So you keep those things cooking all day long, where a Dunlop doesn't change very much. So I think the Dunlop's probably a little bit easier to tune for.
Okay.
Whereas the Pirelli, I think once you get it right, it's pretty good. It has a lot of movement in it, which a rider can either get used to, or you have to fix it in the shock with some compression damping or something of that nature. But if you go that direction where you try to start fixing the movement in the tire with suspension, then you could overheat the tire as well. So with the Pirelli, it's one of the things is, again, it's trying to find the right damping curve that makes the rider comfortable. In addition to that is the temperature stabilization of the rear tire. That's why they have those rules where they say you can't be below a certain PSI, otherwise you're out, because those guys are trying to start as low as possible because they know the tire gets hot and it gets stiff.
All right. So enough on tires, I guess.
Yep.
Bill Russell asks about fuel. He's got a bunch of stuff about fuel. He's like, he says he thinks a lot of people believe that running race gas like U4 or 100 octane from a gas station is going to give them a little bit more performance. So on a stock engine, what are we gaining by running a fuel like VP, U44, MR12 or whatever, versus running a specific fuel on a proper race prep engine with high compression?
Okay, so
is the juice worth the squeeze, basically?
Should I spend an hour on the fuel? Basically, those types of fuels will have a lot of energy in them, and they will take advantage of lower compression engines. So as you get higher and higher in compression, the amount of difference gets lower and lower because you're already optimizing the burn and all that. So if you put in U4, one of the first things you have to do is, because it's highly oxygenated, so you get air along with your gas. So you end up getting more air than the engine can take in. You follow what I'm saying? So am I that boring? You have to take a little sip there.
So you need to, does that mean with more air, does that mean you got to figure out a way to take in more fuel?
Yes, you have to change the mixture.
Okay.
That's why when guys come in and they'll be like, oh yeah, I want to tune my bike for U4. And then they go out to someplace like Fontana, which has a big banking where the bike's dragged down, and they put pump gas in it, they'll have a meltdown. Okay. And they'll have another meltdown. We have to pay for a new engine.
Oh, well, yeah.
And there's that part.
Been down
that. Yeah. So whenever here's a rule of thumb: if you put a bike on the dyno and you have to add gas, it means you're probably making better power. Like as far as the mixture goes. And same with MR12. MR12's got some other stuff going on that has a little more energy, a little more complicated, but definitely the U4 is strictly about the oxygen for the most part. Just throw a bunch of air in. It's like having nitrous. Nitrous oxide is basically air. It's like liquid air. You throw it in there, and then you have to add a bunch of gas, and it makes a bunch of power. If you get it wrong, you melt down.
Oh, well, don't get it wrong.
Yep. That's about it.
Bill also wants to hear your opinion on MotoAmerica, like how they're doing, club racing, why chasing an overall with your local club or regional club is more profitable maybe than quote, fucking off at the Nationals. I'm quoting directly what Bill said.
Bill who?
Bill Russell.
Okay. Shame on you, Bill. Well, I mean, it depends on your goals. This last time out at PitRace, the paddock was completely full. The side paddock was completely full. And then they had the oval race going on, which was the first time I watched it. And those kids are freaking fast. You know, I was really surprised at how well those kids ride. I mean, they watch their heroes, you know, in MotoGP, and they ride just like them, elbow down. They're braking really hard, and they're accelerating really hard, and they're hitting their points on the apexes. And I mean, they're riding really good. So I can see those kids, you know, the future of the sport. You know, so as far as MotoAmerica goes, I think, you know, they're probably still trying to find their way a little bit because DMG screwed it up so bad for a bunch of years. And I think they're doing a good job. I think they're coming along really good. I think viewership's up. But if your deal is just club racing and chasing money, then that's cool. You know, that's where you should be. It all depends on your goal. If your deal is to try to get somewhere in a bigger picture, get a ride on a decent team, possibly, or a race for the best, then you have to go up. You have to go to the Nationals.
Well, there you go, Bill.
Yeah. We're all effing off at the races.
So Harold Stearns, he's another customer of the shop, and he's up there in Fresno area.
Okay.
He says, what's the deal with the R1 this season? He's like, how is the 2020 package making the bike so, quote, unstoppable?
I think it's just a development. You know, I think we're just at the next level. Everything's just that much, a little bit better. You know, so the 2020, as a stock package, they did the same thing. They just made the bike just a little bit better overall. So same thing applies to the race package. You know, we've just, us and Westby, you know, the two main teams in the US that are really been developing that motorcycle. We've taken a little bit of a different path, but for the most part, it's very similar. And we've just, you know, it's just the next generation. And whereas I think the Suzuki is basically the same motorcycle from last year, I don't think the guys at M4 have still had enough time to get to the next step. I know they're working on some swing arms and things like that, but we've already been developing that motorcycle for the last couple of years. Right. And so I think it's just the next generation. That's what's making it unstoppable. Same with the Westby guys. You know, they work really hard over the winter, so they've been developing their motorcycle same as us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could take.
That all makes sense. I mean, another thing that you didn't mention, I mean, I guess it's part of the development, right? It's just that the ability to go, you mentioned Buttonwillow earlier, but like, you know, just being able to go to Buttonwillow in the off season a little bit to go and spin some laps, right?
Yeah, we made the investment early on. You know, we knew it was going to be a push, and we didn't want to, you know, we're taking on the role of the factory support team with some factory level riders. So we didn't want to do a bad job. So we invested early on in some testing, you know, before the COVID thing hit. And then as soon as right at the very moment the COVID thing lifted for the track, we were there testing again. And so I think keeping the riders on the bikes is another thing that was super important.
Yeah.
You know, just getting them to spin some laps and making sure they're comfortable, getting them baseline where we're not trying to figure out the racetrack. I think that's really important as well.
Right. I think maybe, you know, since that other team, you know, they did test at the Ridge also when you guys were there, you know, maybe they'll have some data and stuff ready to go to, you know, throw the kitchen sink at you guys, right?
Yeah, you know, Tony wasn't slow there. He was pretty fast.
So was Bobby.
What's that?
So was Bobby.
So was Bobby. Both those guys were like a few tenths apart. And, you know, Cameron was a second up, I think, as Cameron does. But Jake was a few tenths, maybe 3 or 4 tenths up on Tony, and Tony was a few tenths up on Jake, according to the unofficial times. And so I think that it might be a fun race at Ridge. And, you know, the thing with Washington, you never know when it's going to rain. So that could change everything.
Yeah, that's, you know, I know Ludwig was talking about figuring out a way to get up there and watch the race with you guys. And I was like, well, have fun in the rain, bro.
Well, it's not open to spectators.
Yeah, well, I guess he's working with the team.
Well, I could get him a pass.
I'm sure you could. He's afraid of you. You're scary.
As well he should be. Get back to work, Hairwig.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about race 2, man. Another Yamaha sweep, and something interesting. You and I were talking a little bit yesterday, and man, I had to watch it several times to start to see this.
Yeah.
But Jake does a freaking burnout on the grid, like at the start of the race. What's that about?
When the race started, I was kind of watching from afar because I was in the pit box, and I wasn't right at the grid. One of the grid grid marshals came over and said, "Hey, check out Jake's launch control because the rear tire was spinning before he launched."
Yeah.
So apparently, and this was one of the things that ended up hurting him at the end, was he ended up overworking the clutch, overheating the clutch on the start. But he apparently holds the clutch right at engagement and puts the thing on the launch control. Yeah. So our launch control is fairly high. So it was like almost like slipping the clutch. And then they held the lights a little bit longer than normal too. Like the red light was on quite a while. So the clutch got super hot and it started to engage and started spinning the back tire while it was standing still. And then once he launched, you could see smoke pour off it.
Yeah.
Poor Kyle, I think he focused on it and he bobbled his start.
You know what? After we talked yesterday, I reached out to Kyle, and yeah, I was like, dude, let me ask you something, man. I was like, did Jake doing a burnout in front of you cause a distraction off the start? And he's like, yeah, dude.
I knew it.
Says, yeah, dude. He says,
pouring off of Jake's tire. Now he must have been focused on what the hell's going on there. And also he bobbled his start. It was so funny.
Oh man.
Not funny for Kyle, but you know.
I mean, you could see it. I mean, if anybody's watching the race, they could rewatch it or whatever. Watch the start. I watched it a bunch of times. You can kind of see Jake's rear tire kind of move maybe an inch or two towards the rider's right. And Kyle just ties himself up in the knots. Like he just damn near flips over backwards.
Yeah, Paul and Glenn, I think Tom were looking at the data afterwards, and they said, I thought I overheard Paul saying, I haven't looked at their data yet, but I thought I overheard them saying, yeah, the rear tire was spinning like a 30K.
What?
Yeah, it was really spinning before he was like doing a standing burnout before he launched the bike.
Yeah, like is Jake, you got to start needing to pack pimp juice for Jake for the start.
We have to go out and put the VHT down for him.
Yeah, that's so funny. Anyway, that's hilarious. I just
it ended up hurting him though, because about 5 or 6 laps ago, the clutch started slipping.
Yeah.
And that's one of the negatives of having a clutchless bike, is you never get a chance to feel the clutch. So he took up the whole clutch and the thing was basically tight. And it was basically slipping the whole race for the most part. And then eventually finally gave up about 5 laps from the end. He was lucky to finish third. Another lap and he would have finished.
Well, I mean, it looked like with 7 laps ago, it looked like he was screwing around with an adjuster.
Yep.
And the announcers kept talking about him having a brake problem or whatever, but it didn't look like he was having any problems slowing down.
Yeah.
So it was like, wow, what's going on? So anyway, I don't know what's going on with that, but apparently his clutch was burning up and he was trying to get every little piece of it he could get.
Yeah, he rolled the clutch. He's trying to roll it, and you have to reach over the brake adjuster to get to it because the cable kind of goes over the top of it. So that's why he's kind of leaning forward and trying to touch it while he's going down the straightaway. And here comes another roller coaster straightaway. You know what I mean? He's trying to, he adjusted a few times, and you could see he was getting upset. You know, he was quite animated on the.
Oh yeah.
He was
animated. On the one hand, on the podium, he did finish third, and he. Yeah. You could tell he was kind of pissed, but he did say how stoked he was that the changes that you guys have been making, the team is making to the bike, is making it easier to ride or whatever. He seems pretty happy with that. He's just not happy with smoking the clutch. But up until that point, I mean, he was keeping Cam honest. I mean, Cameron was not getting away like he usually does.
So, yeah, honestly. I don't get very nervous. I don't get nervous at all, actually. at these races anymore. It's kind of almost like, tell me when it's going to end. But even where we're not winning, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I was a little nervous that particular event because the other guys were pretty fast, you know. I didn't want to let Cam down with a bad setting. So Jake was right there. It looked like his bike could turn in underneath Cam, you know, and hold the line tighter. I don't know how long he's going to be able to do that. A lot of times when you ride like that, you end up hurting the rear tire, trying to get off the corner a little tighter and trying to come in a little tighter. But you know, he was right there. I'm like, wow, this is going to be good. I don't know where he's going to try to pass, but yeah, it looked like it was going to be a good fight. And then all of a sudden, you could see he was getting frustrated down the straightaway while I was turning it. He was probably spitting out a few F-bombs under his helmet, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Again, congrats on finishing on the podium.
Yeah.
Sweep Yamaha again. It's kind of great to see your guys, you know, your team on the podium basically every weekend. And it looks like, you know, I looked at the numbers just to see, but it looks like Cameron's got a commanding lead again. He's 175 to Jake's 138 to Matt's 119. So Yamaha 1, 2, 3 in the championship as well.
Yeah, no, that's really good. We have a little bit of room for error. Hopefully we don't make any, but it is racing, you know, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Like I said, we can find a bad setup. We can have a failure. All kinds of things can happen in racing.
So what you were talking about last time when we talked, you were talking about doing a little bit more engine development. Are you going to do that between now and the Ridge, or?
No, I think we'll focus on before Indy, because Indy has such a long straightaway.
Okay.
I think we have a pretty good package for Ridge. I think we'll just leave it at that. Ridge is not the kind of place where you need a bunch of power. I think you're about 265K or so down the front straight. So I don't remember, what is that, 160 something miles an hour? It's not super fast. It's not like a 200-mile-an-hour straightaway. But Indy has a really long straightaway, so I think we'd like to work on that. But yeah, Ridge, I think we'll just keep it a nice, easy ride, easy listening motorcycle.
So before we started this call, you and I talked a little bit about maybe sharing a little data overlay between the two guys. I don't know if you have both of them, but, or maybe explain exactly what it is, the wizardry that you have to make the motorbikes work really well there.
Yeah, the data overlay gets a little complicated, but next time I'll work on something that could show an overlay.
Okay.
Like maybe brake pressures and things like that. I'll prep one of those, but I can show you. I was working on some stuff on traction control. I can show you a little bit of that.
Yeah, let's see that. You can talk us through what it is that you're working on with the strategy or whatever.
Yeah. So let me see if I can share the screen here. Let's see that one. All right. See that?
All right, Richard's sharing his screen now. So
You see it or no?
a lot of squiggly lines.
Yeah. So follow along. There's a lot of squiggly lines here. So this is basically our traction control page. And down up here shows like it's hard to read because a lot of the colors are the same, they're similar. But up here is like some of the throttle action the rider gives it. And in the background, you'll see some of the lean angle and pitch and stuff it has. And then over here is something they call the slip derivative, which is how fast the tire will spool up from a spin. You know, so it's not just sliding, but it's how fast it slides. So we can control how fast the tire slides by looking at this particular bunch of jumbled stuff here. And then we put a target, and then we put amount of cut. So if you look at some of these areas here, see all these big, long, reddish orange stuff?
Yes.
Those are all cuts. Those are all power taken out. Yeah, so that power taken out is what makes the bike rideable and allows the rider to open the throttle without having to worry about wearing out the tire, or even worse, get flicked off the thing. And same over here. This is kind of a quick view of all the different types of things that's happening, like what kind of cut, whether it's wheelie cut or traction cut. So this kind of stuff is happening on your stock ECU as well. It just, you can't see it.
Okay.
So the beauty of this system is you can actually see what's going on, which is really important to someone like me, and be able to make a judgment and make a change. So I think seeing the information is probably more important than actually having the system that does it. You follow what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
as long as you can change and you can see the effect of your change, then you can actually tune it. Otherwise, you're just guessing. So, and then further down here, I could probably blow up a section. So if we put on the track map, so this would be ridge, right?
Yeah.
And this is coming on to out of turn one, and down at the bottom over here where I'm kind of moving the mouse, you can see where our target is, and you can see how much spin we're getting. And then over here, you can see how much cut we're getting. So all those things are things, like I said, you can look at and adjust properly. And every top team has this type of information, and they can go and they can look at that stuff and be able to do the work. Now, if you go to some type of Motec box or something like that, then you can have that same type of information as well. If you go to a kit box, then here, let me readjust that, look at the graphs. When you go to a kit box, and you have to actually slave a lot of information off the bike through some type of port or connection, and sometimes that information is pretty slow and useless.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I say it's for a team that's a mid-level team to look at some of that information and be able to adjust on it is priceless. For a guy who has 20 years plus experience or 30 years experience, like maybe I do or some of the other people have, has a leg up because they can talk to the rider and go, oh, okay, and then make an adjustment without, because they go back and they say, oh, I've seen this here, here, and here before. So let's try this. And it makes you get to that solution faster. A lot of times I won't spend too much time looking at it until after the session because we don't have a lot of time. We have to make a decision in 2 or 3 minutes, maybe a minute, maybe a few seconds. So you ask the rider, what's he feeling? Boom. Okay, let me put that change in there, and off he goes.
So that's what makes your hotel stays super long nights. Right?
Yes, basically. Yeah. More of these, less sleep.
So I got a couple more questions, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about MotoGP too.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you don't have your subscription, but I know you got the cliff notes of what was going on. But let's see.
I don't know, the 3-lettered guy won, I guess. The 3-letter team.
Jerry Menzer says, how much more room for improvement do you think there is in the electronics from the OEMs?
I guess I'm having a hard time understanding the question. From the OEMs, you mean like an
like
OEM bike as you would buy it?
Stock, like how much more room for improvement can the stock electronics make?
Is that modified, or can the manufacturer develop into the motorcycle?
That.
Yeah, a lot.
Oh, really? Okay.
A lot.
So like in 5 years, we'll be having basically what you guys are racing Superbike right now off the showroom?
No, I think it's almost there.
Well, yeah.
You know, I mean, I think it's almost there. You just don't have the information feedback.
Right.
You know, so you would you know, fall out of your chair if you saw how much information was on the back end of an OEM ECU. You can't see it. That's the problem.
Right.
You know, so you can't adjust it, and you're relying on some guy in Europe to make you a map, which should be good. Should be. You know, then you got to go back and you have a few tweaks you can make. And if those guys get it wrong, then that particular manufacturer just ends up sucking for a year. You know what I'm saying? Until someone comes along with a little better package, like, oh, hey, that kit ECU wasn't all that good, so here's version 2.
Right. Okay, so let's see, what's the approximate power difference between the CRT MotoGP bike that you built and your MotoAmerica Superbike?
I'll tell you what, it's getting a lot closer because that CRT bike we built in 2012.
Right.
So, but the CRT bike still has about 20 to 25 horsepower on it.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah.
And do you plan on entering MotoGP again?
Wow, that'd be awesome. I think I'm fairly committed right now, so I can't really even think about it.
Right.
But what I would like to do in the very near future is do a wild card with Cameron on our bike, the World Superbike.
That
I
would be
think that'd be a lot of fun.
yeah.
This year didn't quite work out because every flyway round the World Superbike has conflicts with MotoAmerica. But if we had one round we could go to, that'd be pretty cool. We'll just ship a bike somewhere and go give it a try.
And then okay, so do you leverage this is another Mark Johnson question, by the way.
Boy, Mark's really busy.
Dude, he is, man.
Mark, get a life.
I said, Mark, get a life. So do you leverage any scripting automation or even machine learning to notice patterns, characteristics the naked eye wouldn't notice?
What? Sounds like we're finding scuds in the desert.
Oh man. Yeah, and he's laughing at it.
That's so first Gulf War.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark.
Pattern recognition.
I'm like, I think I saw that movie. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about MotoGP, man.
Wasn't that what was the name of that movie with and never mind. Go off on a tangent.
I was like, wasn't Gene Hackman in that? I don't know.
No.
So Bender, like that was kind of unexpected.
Yeah, I said who?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what?
Bender's winning the race.
Yeah,
Who?
Right?
Yeah, I mean, you could expect Quattararo and some of those other guys, but man, the Moto2 guys there's another point I have. The Moto2 guys have been really rocking, right? The guys have graduated from Moto2. Well, I mean, Moto2's been allowing more and more electronics on their bikes. So I think the guys are learning the packages they need to learn before they get to MotoGP. Just my theory. So it's a lot easier for them to say, give the team some useful information.
Yeah.
So and they're riding those things like Moto2 bikes and like full power leaned over, things like that. So they're kind of phasing out the old guys, the old school guys.
Right.
Yeah, the old school riders.
And then in Moto2, American Joe Roberts, he finished on the podium. And I know I wanted to bring this up specifically because I know you had worked with Joe Roberts briefly back in the day, right?
Yeah, I helped that mean team when he was riding the 600.
Yeah.
I know. But Joe was a good kid. He had a crappy crew chief, but other than that, he was good.
Yeah. I've had the, being the track day guy, and seeing that kid out at Chuckwalla, I mean, kind of watched him grow up, right? I mean, he's kind of Southern California kid. I think he was like part of the Superbike school program and all of that. So
Hollywood kid.
Yeah. So
his dad's English. His dad's English. His parents are English.
Yes.
They I don't know. He has like a company which makes rigging or something for cameras or something like that.
I don't know exactly what Matt does, but
he does that.
His dad would come out, and he was definitely not the quote unquote racer dad, bad character that you normally see in the club racing levels. He was there and just letting the kid do his thing, and he's done well for himself. So
his dad, I questioned a little bit Joe's commitment, because I wouldn't say he's a silver spoon kid, but his dad definitely took care of him.
Right.
So sometimes when the dad takes care of you really hard, the kids don't appreciate what they have. Right. But so I was pleasantly surprised to see him stepping up, but it wasn't just, I'm gonna have a European tour, my dad's gonna pay for it, He's really trying, and that's awesome.
He looks hungry, man. I like it.
Yeah,
and he looks hungry. Like the kid looks like he's starving himself to death.
That's good. I mean, he was. I saw him at Chuckwalla when we were out there with Jake that one time.
Yeah.
That one time we went out there just to get Jake a little more track time on the bike, and he was riding the wheels off that Moto2 bike that he had, like a private bike he had, his own personal one. Yeah. And so, I mean, those guys are committed. I mean, he bought a bike and he's out there passing as much as he can, even at Chuckwalla. And they were doing, he looked good. His riding looked good. So, good on him. I'm glad to see an American up there.
Yeah, and you see, I've got the Rocco Landers gear on because,
I don't know Rocco that well. I met him once.
yeah, I mean, back in the day, raced with his dad, Willow, like 20 years ago. And we actually saw them at the Ridge. They were doing testing or whatever at the Ridge that same weekend when we were there. And I guess Rocco is flying to Europe and gonna go race the Red Bull Rookies Cup this weekend. I think he might be the only American in that class.
Yeah, which is too bad, but like again, we're trying to recover from the whole DMG hole that we had.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so it's good to see a kid like Rocco doing that. And Jake was in that Red Bull Rookies, and same with JD, and same with Cameron. And so I think it's a good program. Like I said, I was still pleasantly surprised to see all those little kids that were riding so well in the Oval Series there.
Yeah.
I got some kids coming up. They look really good. I'm super serious.
Yeah, I think the Ovale Cup thing is supported in a big way by the same people that Joe is riding for.
Are they?
American Racing Team or whatever. I think that guy that runs that team is running a bunch of kids through that Ovale Cup. And I know that, because I got my hands in the other things too, the Mythos Leathers program. I know a bunch of kids I saw wearing the Mythos gear. So Rocco too. So unfortunately, he can't wear that stuff because I think he's got a Red Bull deal or whatever for the Rookies Series. But
right.
Yeah.
You can't have a monster sponsorship for a while now.
Well, it's the Rookies Cup is sponsored by them, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Richard. Well, dude, you're gonna freak out when I tell you we've been on for like an hour and 20.
Are you kidding? Wow. I think we bored everyone to tears already.
I know, right? I'm like, do I need to take a monster to stay awake for this? Right?
All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah. All right, man.
We'll talk to you after Ridge.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, man. Talk to you later. See ya.